That said, there is a new platform that everyone is clamoring for. Everyone is just so excited about this.
Got a new oligarchic-run Twitter competitor that we can get on board with, guys.
That's
very
right.
exciting.
Get excited. There's more. Okay, so let's go to B4 here. This is from The Guardian. It's worth noting the cage match is probably canceled, but as The Guardian says, quote, the real battle between the two billionaires will begin on Thursday when Zuckerberg launches Threads, his company's Twitter competitor. Now, Crystal and I both jumped on Threads last night. Pretty impressed with it aesthetically.
The tech is good.
Yeah, it looks good. It looks good. Michael Schellenberger actually already was reporting this morning that people, sort of conservative activist type posters, are getting red flag warnings, or people who try to follow them are getting red flag warnings that could be, I'm not ready to say that they are, but they could be, sort of being applied with a double standard, conservative versus liberals, saying, are you sure you want to follow this account? They've posted a lot of disinformation in the past.
Interesting.
Yeah, and remember, Zuckerberg obviously has talked a big game about free speech in the past and has not. Sometimes he's reflective about it after the fact, but he has not always followed through on that. Hunter Biden laptop is a great example of that. So again, there's a lot of reason to be suspicious about this, but Zuckerberg is coming in hard and saying, a lot of people are really frustrated with Elon's version of Twitter. Twitter is a hub for very powerful people, a lot of very powerful liberal people who are extremely frustrated with the situation. And they've been courting influencers, like mega, mega popular celebrities, saying, if we get you over here and we integrate it with Instagram, we're not asking you to get on something new like Blue Sky or something totally foreign to you that you have to download, create an account, but it's just all of your followers will already be there. You can already follow the people that you're following. Can it work? I would say probably it can actually mount some competition to Twitter.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. I mean, listen, I'm kind of a boomer at this point in terms of my social media uptake. I'm really not ready to learn a whole new platform, TikTok or whatever. I'm old at this point. But I was able to, all you do is you download the app. If you're already on Instagram, I didn't even have to remember my password for it to integrate. It was just is this you? And I was like, yeah. And then it asks you if you want to follow the same people you're following on Instagram. Said yes, and then you're off to the races. It looks exactly like Twitter. I mean, it's just it's a total carbon copy of Twitter, basically. And I think the reason that I feel like this has more of a shot than other efforts is just because, look, Meta is huge. Way more users on Instagram and Facebook than there are on Twitter. Yep. Way more, orders of magnitude more. So the fact that it's so easy for people that are already there to pick it up, and that they seem to have been pretty strategic about making sure some of those big influencers, not even political people, but I jumped on there and I saw Shaq on there threading or whatever. It shows you they put some strategic savvy thought into this, because the whole thing with the social media network is that you need people to be there. That's why they're kind of natural monopolies and why it's been hard to supplant Twitter, even as you had free speech concerns or concerns about Elon's management, et cetera, because it's just well, this is still where the people are, and I'm still getting some benefit out of seeing breaking news tweets or elite journalists or whoever the political influencers that you find interesting. That's where they are, so I'm still getting that benefit. I mean, the other reason that this might succeed is because Twitter didn't have a good last week. Let's put this up on the screen. You guys might know about this. I mean, first there was a shutdown, it was not working at all. And then this is the headline here is Elon Musk tries forcing Twitter users to use less Twitter. And then people were getting these error messages that their rate limit had been exceeded. And they were like, what the hell is going on here? And then Elon tweeted that apparently they had put in these hard limits of you couldn't view, not tweet, you couldn't view more than 600 tweets unless you pay for the blue check mark, and then it was 6,000. And then they upped the limit a bit. But this Twitter is really run, most of the content is created by this small percentage of power users. And so you're effectively cutting them off.
Yeah.
In terms of revenue and business, this is the total opposite direction of what every social media company wants to go in, because the whole thing is the money comes from advertisers, and for them to be able to serve their ads, you have to be on the platform. So every social media company, their whole goal is to keep you locked in on their platform, scrolling endlessly. That's the whole goal. Is that good for us? No. But is that the business model? Yes. And so Elon, and there's already a lot of reporting about how their revenues are way down, et cetera, for whatever reason, and there's a lot of speculation about the real reason why these rate limits were put into place, maybe he didn't pay his server bill or they were having tech issues or whatever the actual reason was, this is not a good direction to go in terms of the business health of the site. And for people who, want to be able to scroll Twitter and want to use it for, like us, use it for work, et cetera, this really hobbles the site. It makes it a lot less useful for those power users who, again, are like the core of the content creation and what makes the site useful and valuable.
Yeah, that's a completely, one of the things to remember about Twitter is that not only is its user base dwarfed by basically by Facebook and then Facebook's Instagram and TikTok, et cetera, the vast majority of daily users are a minority even of people who use the platform. So if you're one of the people that's on Twitter every day, you're in a small minority of actually even people that have an account on Twitter, let alone a small minority of the American population. And so for that purpose, this is actually pretty bad timing for Elon Musk, right? When you have a competitor that's serious popping up. And by the way, if we're going from a monopoly to a duopoly by, from one censorious oligarch to another,
right.
I guess that's how low the bar is for celebration at this point, that there's some measure of competition on one platform to be better or on another platform to be better. But it's the world that we live in. Musk says that this is a, quote, temporary emergency measure, and it's aimed at getting rid of data pillaging by, quote, several hundred organizations who were, quote, scraping Twitter data extremely aggressively to the point where it was affecting the real user experience. I actually don't have a good idea of how it was affecting the real user experience in a way that is quite as conspicuous as the blocks, the content limits for people who, are scrolling, didn't pay, you can't even go down their own profiles and look at their own property, essentially, their own thoughts, tweets, because they've exceeded the daily limit, and there's nothing you can do about that. So I think it's genuinely really bad timing for Elon Musk that Zuckerberg comes in with his competition. And Musk has been doing this sort of startup atmosphere. They've been generating the startup atmosphere at Twitter, where it's we're going to experiment with things. We're going to try to address some of the systemic problems in Silicon Valley that made this platform unappealing, and that just drove this platform to a place where it was so much smaller than all the others. But at a certain point, you can't say, well, it's going to take another year, it's going to take another 2 years. When you're a year in, you have to actually have really, really conspicuously improved the user experience, and you have to be able to put you have to be able to walk the walk and say that the product has genuinely been transformed. And I think he's coming up really closely on that sort of deadline or de facto deadline with the public.
Yeah, and obviously with Threads launching, the sharks are circling, and there's clear weakness to exploit here. And, also it just bears repeating that all the promises of this is going to be a free speech platform, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, even putting these kind of limits on users is kind of antithetical to free speech. One of the theories about why they put these rate limits in place is another ploy to sort of force people into paying for the product. But he's also been so antagonistic towards the Twitter user base that it makes people out of spite not want to pay for the blue check mark and get your expanded rate limits and your whatever, whatever else you get with paying and your primary tweet placement and algorithmic benefits, et cetera, which again is also sort of contrary to the free speech thing. But listen, I can't say I'm celebrating the idea that, we've got another potential billionaire savior for us, because as I've said a million times here before, whether it's Elon or Zuckerberg or Jack or whoever it is, no billionaire oligarch is going to secure our First Amendment rights, because that's not what they're in for. They're in to make money. They're in for, their own ego or narcissism or whatever. It's all about, them, their bottom line. It's not really, truly about any sort of free speech or public town square, et cetera. Many of the factors that shaped the current censorship regime at places like Meta are also applied to Twitter, because it's not really about the laws, it's about the advertisers and what they are willing to accept. That's why so many of these censorship regimes end up looking basically identical, no matter which particular oligarch is in charge. But just in terms of a business story, I think it's going to be fascinating to watch and see whether Threads can actually make a run at it whether they could actually, have a chance at reaching parity with or even taking down Twitter. And Elon has certainly left himself vulnerable to that kind of challenge. I guess that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, libertarians have said for years that Twitter's competition is Facebook. Like these places have competition because there's Facebook and Instagram, so Twitter is not a monopoly. This proves that completely wrong, by the way, because Twitter is a very particular product. People go to Twitter for very different reasons than they go to Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. So it's never been true. That's always been a very dubious argument to begin with. But actually competing on the very same ground in a way that, if you have this natural monopoly on people's time, attention, and in this very specific way, that actually I think we could be looking at a duopoly if this has legs. And I haven't seen any competitor, whether it's Parler, whether it's Truth Social. And Truth Social, by the way, it's hard to find somebody who is as popular with a segment of the public than Donald Trump. I mean, you can maybe talk about Michelle Obama, and Donald Trump is extremely polarizing, but with some 20% of the population, the general population, he's really popular. And if he can't mount a successful competitor to Twitter where you have people actually coming over there in big enough numbers to give something legs, it's, again, between Parler, Truth Social, Blue Sky, whatever else has tried to do exactly what Twitter does, nobody's been able to do it. And so I think, again, if Zuckerberg is able to say, I'm going to do exactly what Twitter does, and we're going to become a duopoly, that, again, really shows a lot of those arguments were wrong from the get-go.
Zuckerberg claims that they got 10 million signups in the first 7 hours. Obviously, that's pretty impressive. Number, remains to be seen. A lot of those people just be like me, trying it out, see if I have yet to thread. So it's not like I'm an active user. I'm a full-on lurker at this point. But, I just think we'll see what happens here. My fear is that, like the rest of our media ecosystem, we will increasingly separate into ideologically safe spaces in terms of our social media preferences as well. The right will stay on Twitter, go to Truth Social or whatever. The left will migrate over to Meta or Blue Sky or Mastodon or whatever, and we'll have a duopoly, but it'll be purely split down along ideological lines, sort of the way that the cable news ecosystem or other media ecosystems are. That could be the direction that we're going in, and I think that would be a loss. And then also just in terms of enjoyment of the platform, I mean, part of the fun of Twitter is seeing what other people who disagree with you say. Sometimes they're hilariously stupid things that they say, or the memes that they're sharing and what's going on in their little ideological niche. And so if you lose that, I do think it takes some of the importance, some of the power out of the site, and some of what made Twitter a compelling place for some subset of the population to start with. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.